Hi friends, please subscribe my channel for more scary and horror stories. Subscribe. I grew up in a small town where superstitions still carried weight, especially when it came to toys and dolls. My aunt had a habit of collecting rare figures, and among them sat a Labubu doll. She claimed she ordered it online from a seller who never revealed their full identity, just a vague profile with no reviews and no real background. The box had arrived without labels, only a strange, hand-drawn symbol on the inside flap. The doll itself looked harmless at first glance, but something about its grin seemed too wide, too human. Its eyes were glassy, but when the light hit them, they didn't shine like regular plastic. They absorbed the light, dull and almost alive. My aunt displayed it on a shelf in her living room, and from the first night it arrived, I swear the house felt different. When I stayed over, I'd wake in the middle of the night and find the doll facing me, even though I knew my aunt left it facing the wall. Sometimes its arms were slightly raised, other times its head tilted in ways I couldn't explain. My aunt brushed it off as me imagining things, but even she admitted she heard noises, soft tapping, like tiny feet running across the hardwood floor when no one else was awake. One evening, she called me in a panic. She said the Labubu doll had fallen off the shelf. When she picked it up, she found small scratches on the wall, 5 long lines etched deep like claws. The next morning, her cat was found hiding under the bed, shaking, refusing to come near the living room again. It escalated weeks later. My aunt began finding the doll in different rooms altogether. Once, she swore she locked it inside a glass cabinet, only to discover it sitting neatly in the kitchen chair when she came home from work. Its head was turned slightly toward the door, as if waiting for her. The final night I visited, I stayed in the guest room. Around 3 a.m., I heard faint laughter, high-pitched, childlike, but distorted, like it was echoing from a distance. I froze. The door creaked open slowly, and when I sat up, the Labubu doll was standing against the frame, its shadow stretched unnaturally long across the floor. I didn't move. I just watched as the shadow twitched and bent, independent of the doll's body, as though something else was using it. I shut my eyes, forced myself not to scream, and prayed it was a nightmare. The next morning, the doll was back on the shelf, but my aunt had dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling. She told me she had dreamt of a child whispering into her ear all night, saying the same thing over and over again. "Don't leave me here. I want to play forever." After that, she boxed the Labubu doll up and threw it into the river outside town. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I swear I hear that faint tapping again, like tiny feet running across the floor, closer and closer. A close friend of mine, Lena, worked late shifts at a shipping warehouse. One night, she came home carrying a small cardboard box. She explained that it was one of those unclaimed shipments that had been sitting in the lost items section for months. No return address, no sender information, just a faded shipping label with random numbers. When she opened it in her apartment, there was only one thing inside a Labubu doll. It was wrapped in old newspaper, the kind that smelled faintly of damp storage. The doll itself looked worn, its fur slightly matted, the grin stretched across its face, cracked in places. Lena laughed about it at first, saying maybe she had just brought home someone's creepy collection piece. But as she turned the doll over, she noticed something strange. On the back of its head, scratched into the plastic, were her initials. LS. She froze, then shrugged it off, saying it must just be coincidence. Maybe the letters stood for something else. That first night, she placed the doll on a shelf in her living room. The next morning, she called me before work, sounding uneasy. She swore she had left the doll in the living room, but when she woke up, it was sitting on her nightstand next to her bed. She thought maybe she had moved it half asleep, but she wasn't sure. Over the next week, she grew pale and tired. Every time I saw her, she looked worse. She told me she kept hearing small noises at night, like scratching or shuffling, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. She started locking the doll back in the box, even sealing it with tape. But each morning she would find the tape peeled away and the doll set out somewhere in the apartment. One night she called me in a panic, whispering. She said she woke up to find the doll pressed against her bedroom door, facing the inside. When she turned on the light, she saw faint scratches on the wood, like little hands had been dragging across it. She tried to get rid of it. I went with her when she tossed the box into a dumpster 3 blocks away. We made sure it was gone. But the next morning, Lena found the box on her kitchen table, the doll sitting neatly inside, as if it had been waiting for her. A few days later, she stopped answering her phone. I went to her apartment, and the police eventually forced their way inside. She was gone. The place looked normal, no sign of struggle, no mess, nothing. The only thing out of place was the box, sitting in the middle of the living room floor. Inside was the Labubu doll. The initials carved into the back of its head no longer read ILS. They were mine. A man named Robert lived in a small town outside the city. He wasn't into toys or collectibles, but one morning he noticed something strange in his backyard. Sitting against the fence was a Labubu doll. It was dirty, like it had been left outside for weeks, its fur soaked from last night's rain. He asked his neighbors if it belonged to their kids. No one had seen it before. He left it on the porch, planning to throw it away later. But when he came home from work that evening, the doll was sitting on his front steps, facing the door. He thought maybe a kid was pranking him, but there were no footprints in the mud around it. That night, he tossed the doll into his outdoor trash bin and locked the lid. The next morning, he found it on the chair in his kitchen. The back door was locked. No windows were open. He told himself he must have brought it in without remembering. But deep down, he knew he hadn't. Over the next few nights, Robert started waking up at the same time, 3:17 a.m., to a faint sound in the house. Sometimes it was the creak of a floorboard, sometimes the soft drag of something moving across the tile. Each time, when he looked around, the doll had changed position. Sometimes it was at the foot of his bed, sometimes on the counter. Once, balanced on the stair railing, staring down at him. Finally, he decided to burn it. He lit a fire in his backyard pit and dropped the doll inside. The plastic melted, the fur burned away, and he felt some relief as the flames ate it. But when he returned inside, his living room smelled faintly of burnt plastic, and sitting on his couch, perfectly intact, was the Labubu doll, its grin wider than before. Robert moved out a week later. No one lives in that house now, but neighbors say they still see the doll, sometimes sitting in the window, watching the street. Clara loved second-hand shopping. She would spend hours in local thrift stores, hunting for unique finds. One hot summer afternoon, she stopped at a small thrift shop she had never noticed before, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. Inside, everything felt off, too quiet, the air heavy, the old floor creaking with each step. On a shelf near the back, she spotted it, a Labubu doll. Its fur was gray, not colorful like the ones she had seen online. Its smile looked wrong. The stitching on the mouth was uneven, as if someone had ripped it open and sewn it shut again. Clara picked it up anyway, telling herself it was just old and worn. For $5, she thought it was a fun little collectible. That night, she set the doll on her dresser and went to bed. Around 2 a.m., she woke up to the sound of soft scratching. At first, she thought it was a mouse. She sat up, and in the dim light from the street lamp outside, she saw the Labubu doll had fallen off the dresser. It was sitting upright on the floor, facing her bed. She hadn't left it like that. She put it back, went back to sleep, and tried to laugh it off. But the next morning, it was on her desk chair, pulled up close to her bed. That evening, she left it in the living room before heading to bed. When she woke up at 3:12 a.m., the doll was on her nightstand, inches from her face. Clara finally decided to return it. The next day, she drove back to the thrift shop, only to find the windows boarded up and the door locked with a chain. A man from the laundromat told her the place had been closed for years. That night, Clara threw the doll in a dumpster 2 blocks away. But when she came home, it was sitting on her porch, its smile stretched wide, its glassy eyes reflecting the streetlight. No matter where she left it, at work, at a friend's house, even in the river 2 towns over, the doll always found its way back. And every night at the same time, 3:12 a.m., Clara wakes up to the sound of faint scratching, followed by the quiet creak of something climbing closer. Hi friends, please subscribe my channel for more scary and horror stories. Subscribe.